We're coming in hot to give you our hot takes on all the latest mental health news.
From headlines and memes to developments and breakthroughs.
We go into this show blind with the hopes of learning something new.
Before sharing some bunny hugs.
And leaving with our eyes wide open. I'm Nick.
And I'm Todd. And this is Mental Health Headline Hot Takes.
We're glad you're here. Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Mental Health Headlines Hot Takes. We are two tired people today, I think. So we'll bring some energy, maybe.
My choice.
Spin the wheel? Oh, okay. What are you going to do?
Why is it? It's like, why do I even have a wheel? It's like always the same.
I think I've only won once. Like I've only gotten to go first by my own accord or choose who goes first by my own accord once. It's rigged.
If it was up to you, would you go first?
No.
Okay, I'll go first. I know you're having a bit of a issue today, so I will do this one. It is people with depression or anxiety could lose sickness benefits, says UK minister. And this is from The Guardian.
You're really starting with that today?
I am.
Right.
I can't find who wrote it, but it's from The Guardian anyway. And it's kind of political and weird, so I kind of...
I like when things go a little political, so...
So I kind of highlighted a lot of the article of what I want to read, so just bear with me. Mel Strike, he's a minister of something or other, announced his plans to overhaul the way disability benefits work and was due to address the Commons on their issues later in the day. Oh, Jesus. Now I'm all scurry. Okay, this was a while ago. So anyway, while he sought to portray the proposals as part of a grown-up conversation about the best form of welfare provisions, he also indicated the focus on the plan was part of a conservative election strategy designed to put some pressure on Labour before a general election in which his party is expected to suffer a heavy defeat. So they're going to screw stuff up and then Labour will win, and then that's their problem. Stride batted away suggestions his government had created the problems by failing to adequately provide such care in the first place, saying it was introducing a scheme in which some healthcare support would be provided alongside work coaches. In an interview with the Times, Stride had suggested the proposals would mean people with milder mental health conditions would no longer receive financial support, and they follow a speech in which the Prime Minister announced major changes to the welfare system earlier this month, saying people with less severe mental health conditions should be expected to engage with the world of work. So stop being pussies and get to work, you mopey bastards. Stride said the system should not be paying people to deal with quote unquote ordinary difficulties of life, and suggested that many voters deep down agreed with him. Stride said a whole plethora of things such as talking therapies, social care packages, respite care, etc. would be better than cash. But again, people are saying, well, yeah, that would be better, but you screwed those up too. So anyway, James Taylor, the executive director of strategy at disability equity charity Scope, called for an end to the reckless assault on disabled people and to fix the real underlying issues. And he says life costs a lot more for disabled people, including people with mental health conditions. Threatening to take away the low amount of income they get from the government provides won't solve the country's problems. The government needs to end the reckless assault on disabled people and focus on how to fix the real underlying issues. So that was just a part of the article. I didn't read the whole thing. But basically, the government saying, some of you are just being pussies and just,
man
up, get back to work because you're costing us too much money. Of course, people have tummy aches and take time off work and get sick pay for it. But,
Well, if I had to guess, I would imagine that they probably want those people to toughen up and get back to work too. Take some Pepto-Bismol and get at it.
Yeah, that could be. So yeah, the UK's kind of the UK is not. I
Well,
mean,
it's good to see
been a
them
few,
leading the way in some bullshit as opposed to the US.
right? Yeah, so I've read a few articles about the UK lately about mental health stuff, and yeah, this one just kind of had my blood boiling a bit. So,
I
um,
saw when I was looking for my article, I saw an article that was basically saying that they talk too much about mental health in schools. And so I didn't go with that one because I was just kind of like, stupid, like what a clickbaity headline. But, I do feel like there's, with all the chat about mental health and all the chat about mental health in the workplace, which is ironically what my article is about as well. I do think we're kind of at when something kind of gains a lot of steam that is going to change the status quo, like normalizing mental health days and illness and struggles and, treating them the same as you would treat, physical ailments. I do think there's going to be a lot more of this sort of, oh, we're going too far in that direction. And so there's going to start being, propaganda and other stories like this where they're trying to kind of pull it back the other way, let the pendulum swing the other way.
right. Yeah, and I mean, I read articles like that, and sometimes I do question myself too. Like, I mean, I'm a mental
I
health
do too.
advocate and all this stuff, but then it's like, okay, but are we maybe going too far? Are our children too soft now? And it's like, you know what? Well, fuck that. That's how we got in this the way the world is already.
That's true.
Like,
That is
like
true. I
you know.
kind
So
of I kind of wonder that too sometimes. I do think, and when I like make mental health related content, I also think about that. I'm like, is this too much? Cuz like I think it's okay to empathize with people. And I think it's okay to like listen, understand, validate. Everybody deserves that. But sometimes I do think like, am I just like soft on this? Like, should this bother me as much as it does, or should I let it bother me as much, especially lately? Because I've been struggling for several months, as you know, lately with kind of burnout and depression, and a lot of it's the weather and seasons and stuff going on in my life and all that stuff. But I do sometimes, I'm like, just get off your get out of your freaking head, and just stop just accepting all of this and like do something about it. So I do think there's a
right.
fine line where you gotta treat people with empathy and be understanding, but we also don't want to go too far where like people don't build their own resilience. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And in my talks that I do when I do public speaking, it's like I always try to emphasize that you have to do the work too. Like you can't
Yes.
just be like, hey, I'm sad all the time and that's just the way I am. It's like, okay, but you have to do the work. You have to talk about the stuff that you don't want to talk about because that's what's going to heal you. And you have to be proactive. And it's always easier said than done. Because I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
spun my tires for a good 15 years before I started being
Oh,
more
me too.
proactive. But at the same time, yeah, you don't want to. Yeah, I know it is a fine line, even with addictions too. It's like when do you tell a parent like, um, you are being, oh, what's the word?
An
Mm,
enabler. You're
yeah,
enabling.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're enabling. Um, yeah, so it is.
And I
I don't.
think now I don't think this is that, to be
Right.
clear, but I am saying like I do see this and I'm like, okay, like I think it's fair to say I'm not having a good mental day, just like I have a tummy ache and so I'm taking a day off. Or I think it's
Mhm.
okay to, say I don't have the space for this right now. I say that to people all the time. Actually, it's usually said when I just don't respond to them. It's like a nonverbal way of communicating I don't have the space for this.
I
But
noticed.
yeah, it's not just you, it's
I'm
everybody.
kidding.
It's like I have so many like text messages and DMs and stuff. I'm just like, I don't even want to do this. It is like a weird pressure thing that we put on ourselves to respond to anyway. But yeah, I do think sometimes like I worry that because one of the things that it's a trauma response for sure and a buildup of trauma responses, but I know I'm really fucking resilient and I think I can handle anything. That doesn't mean I always want to handle anything because I don't, but like I have been handling my shit by myself since I was a kid, and I am resilient. And so while I struggle with depression and I struggle with, you know, I had my anxiety under control for several years to the point where I would just say like, I don't even suffer from anxiety anymore, but that's back the last couple of years. Right. And so, I think like managing all of that stuff and being resilient is good. And part of the reason that I've been that way is because I've had to like, you know, grind it out from being a young kid. So I think there's like value in that. But I also think there is times when like people need help, like they're ill, they're sick, they're mentally sick. And that's addiction. That can be, you know, extreme anxiety or extreme depression, all of that stuff. So I think that it's just like a fine line that we have to figure out what to toe. But telling people when they can and can't have mental illness or mental struggles, fuck that. That's bullshit.
Mm-hmm. And like, I don't know if there was more supports and the mental health system wasn't so overloaded, then yeah, I mean, if you have more tools in your toolbox, but you're waiting a year to get that strategy and that tool to put in your toolbox, then yeah, people do get kind of frustrated and um, quote unquote milk the system because they're waiting to be seen by a professional or whatever. So it's like, well, are
What's
they milking the
milk?
system?
Yeah, what's milking the system? That's the real question, I think.
Well, yeah, and that, yeah, and what does the UK government consider a mild mental health issue? Like, you know,
But like
it's all very
depression for
vague.
me and depression for someone else is going to be totally different. It relies
Absolutely.
on your chemicals, your DNA, your life experiences. Like there's some of the stuff that I've been through in my life that I know that if someone who didn't have, in both cases, didn't have the privilege I have, but also maybe had more privilege than I have, and it would wreck them because they've never been
Hmm.
exposed to it before. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I don't
kids
think
should
you
have
can
trauma early on so that when they're our
early and
age,
often so that they can build
be
resilience.
resilient.
But I just think it sucks that we're labeling generally because again, like people have different things impact people different ways. It's part of how you're wired, how you've experienced the world, and a lot of the times whether or not you've had support or tools to communicate. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and just how easily accessible those strategies are.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Exactly.
um,
So what
yeah,
party? What party was this again? The Conservative Party. They've got like
yeah.
6 of them over there that are relevant.
Yeah, sick. Yeah, but right now it's the conservatives, and they're basically um, saying that they're going to lose to the Labor Party next election. Whenever I didn't read when the next election is, but it's basically already like
So
forecasted.
they they do the weirdest things in England. They just randomly call for elections, and I think they're like 6 weeks after they call for them. We're here in the
Here too,
U.S. Yeah, it's so I don't understand that. Here in the
it's
U.S. we've
awesome,
got just we're going on 2 years of the 2024 presidential campaign at this
right? I
point.
it, I can't stand American politics as a Canadian who has nothing but American television channels. It's like constantly, and it's like the
Well, it's
media
because
and
it's a show. It's a show.
just
It's not an
yeah.
actual.
And then in Canada, it's like the beginning of November, and they're like middle of December, there's going to be an election. And it's like, sweet. Everyone campaigns for like 6 weeks. It's hard and fast, done.
Must
It's
be
not two
nice.
years of shit.
That must be nice.
Commercials and I mean, there's still politics every day, and you still see all that crap. But like the campaigning is only like 6 weeks. Um, so anyway, yeah, because I think that's part of America's constant divide is you're constantly being divided.
Yeah, I mean it. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to get into that because I'm gonna.
Okay,
When
yeah, yeah.
one of the things I do when I'm like frustrated or depressed or something's not going right in my life, I just go get really pissed off about politics. I'm not even kidding you. Like my therapist is like, she's like, I know when you like actually have things that you should be talking about because you come in here, like a bull in a china shop complaining about politics. And so she's like, so she doesn't want me to listen to any political news or podcasts on my way to therapy anymore.
That's your tell.
It is. It is. It is. I just go crazy about it.
What would that be? Your coping mechanism, I
It's
guess?
my coping mechanism. But if you
Mm-hmm.
think about it,
Mm-hmm.
like the way that I cope is, this clicked with me because I saw a meme of a Robin Williams quote 10 years ago or so. And I was like, oh my God, this is what I do. So it was a quote about him saying one of the reasons he likes to make people laugh is because he knows what it's like to like feel absolutely hopeless and alone or something like that, right? Along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized like, oh my God, when I feel hopeless or I feel depressed or something, I immediately go and try to help somebody else. And that's like me deflecting from what's going on with me and trying to make sure that I help someone else who may be feeling the same way or have some sort of struggle. So like
Mm-hmm.
it would be such a tell is that I go and I'm like, I get pissed off about politics because I want better for the people that need it, right? Like the working class, the low class, the people that struggle. I came from that. So like I know what that was like, and I don't want to ever lose touch of that and use the privilege I have for those people when I can. So it's just such a like a response for me to just go and try and help somebody else when I'm struggling. So
Mm-hmm.
it's weird. It's a weird thing that I'm trying to learn to do better about.
Right. Huh. Do you think like I mean, you're a busy dude. Like anytime I talk to you, you're
Well,
like,
that's a trauma response too. I keep
yeah, I
myself
was
so
gonna
busy
say,
so I don't have to be with my thoughts.
right, right. Or because you grew up low income, do you feel like it's like you're overcompensating, trying to succeed?
Totally.
Yeah.
So that, man, this is like a therapy session for me right now. That's actually so my driver was like, I need to get out of this class. Like I was told I didn't have to go to college, grew up poor, struggling. Dad lost his job, uncles lost his job. Mom worked at a grocery store. Like dad had to move back home a couple times with his parent, like moved around all the time. It was horrible. And I was working at 15 years old just so that I could like buy food and clothes. And we were,
Diapers.
diapers, all of that stuff. And so I think like I have this American work hard in me. And, it's funny, Dr. Isabel said to me a couple of weeks ago, she's like, wow, you've been working so hard for your whole life. And I was like, that's when I started thinking about it. And I'm like, oh my God, I have. Like, I put myself through school while working full time, going to school full time. And I just don't really know how to not do so much. And it's because
Mm-hmm.
and it gets like that when I'm uneasy. I find more things to do. Like, you think about it, like, we started this show right at the exact same time that I was taking over producing my own show. Right. And I'm like, yeah, so what a perfect time to start a whole nother show when I'm,
you just started a nonprofit foundation.
and that, yeah, and that. And so it's crazy. So yeah, anyway, whatever. I've been talking forever, but my point,
I like it.
my whole point is I think we should let people decide what their mental state is and give them the tools and the ability to hopefully build resilience and start traumatizing kids early and often. That's the takeaway.
Just look how good you're doing. You're resilient but miserable. Oh man, I kind of had a similar life. Oh man, we're not even talking about articles anymore. But I grew up small town, like we were quote unquote white trash and whatever. But I'm sure my dad would argue that. But let's face it, we were. Uh,
Sometimes a pig's a pig, right?
yeah. And I mean, I had incredible work ethic until I hit about mid 30s, and I was done. And
You get burnt
yeah,
out.
and I've been kind of struggling ever since financially, but also it's like but also I'm home at lunch when my kids are here. And it's like I am more present, I guess. I'm enjoying life a bit more. It would be I'd enjoy it even more if like when things broke down I could afford just to fix them. Stuff like that. Um but yeah, I kind of decided I made a mental decision like I will never be wealthy and that's not
Well,
that's
that's
not
the
that's
weird
not
thing is
success
it
to me
isn't.
anyway. Being
Yeah,
happy is successful.
it's
So
not. It's not. And I've told this story before, and I probably shouldn't keep saying it, but I my whole goal when I first decided I was going to go to college after my first year, when I figured out I wanted to do marketing, was I was going to be a CMO. And I hustled for so long. And then when I got that opportunity a couple of years ago, even though it was interim, I just remember sitting there at the top and I'm like, it is lonely up here. And this isn't all it's cracked up to be. And I've sacrificed relationships, friendships, working so hard. And for what? Because you can't take the money with you. And I never really wanted to get rich. That's the thing. It wasn't about getting rich or having a lot of money. I gave myself this goal of like, it would be nice if I needed a new couch or a new bed, if I could just buy that and not have to worry about how I was going to pay for it. Or if I could take a vacation and not worry about how I was going to pay for it, because that's how we grew up. Like one camping trip, maybe a weekend a year, and it was like you waited the whole year for that. And I am grateful for my dad and my grandparents for like making those things happen for us when we were kids. But like, how sad is that you save a whole year to take your kids on a camping trip, you know?
I know. And then you fight the whole time because we're supposed to be enjoying this.
That's exactly what it's
Yeah.
like. And it's
So
exactly what
yeah.
it's like.
So yeah, I've kind
So
of made a decision like, you know what? I don't need to crave going on a holiday if like every day is just pretty nice to be around my family around here and we can do day trips and whatever. So anyway, I
balance.
say that, but then I also have anxiety and depression. Okay,
Okay.
sorry,
So my
you have an
my
article.
yeah, my article's also about work and mental health. And this article is titled Tips to Improve Mental Health at Work by Matt Gonzalez. And this is
Just the
on,
tips.
yeah, this is on it's SHRM Shroom, but it stands for Society of Human Resource Management, which has been around since 1948. And so, what this article does, and there's a lot of it's a bit of an interview, and I don't need to get into it, but there's one piece that I really wanted to get into, and it was survey results that show how people feel about how their employer supports their mental health. And so I wanted to share those stats because I think this is something I talk about a lot on LinkedIn as someone who leads people, as someone who has mental health challenges that ebb and flow, and as a leader worries about other people's as well. But most companies now, because it's very trendy, have some policy or language around mental health and how they support mental health. I have seen this language, experienced this up close and personal. And then at the end of the day, when it comes down to put the pedal to the metal, it's all bullshit, right? So this survey result says um, when it comes to workers' mental health, some workers find that their organizations are talking the talk, but not walking the walk. And so the results of this survey showed 73% of workers report their organization says it cares about employee mental health. And then 39% of those workers say their organization only pretends to care because it's trendy. 42% of workers say they feel comfortable discussing mental health at work. And then there are some mixed signals according to workers who say 69% say they are shown kindness and consideration, 65% feel they are supported, 41% feel they're gossiped about, and 35% say they are less likely to get promoted if they disclose anything about their mental health at work. So, as someone who feels burnt out, has been through layoffs, has not felt supported at all in the workplace. And I'm not saying that now, but just in general. I kind of feel like they talk the talk and they don't walk the walk. And that's been my experience. And one of the things that I think is so important as a leader and someone who's um, empathetic towards that and really understands how sometimes your work can be impacted. I think it's super important to be open and for leaders to share their stories as well. And for leaders and companies, big and small, to normalize these conversations. And to your point with that other article is like, sometimes you just need a freaking mental health day. And sometimes you can only give 60% of your normal 100%, but for that day, that's 100%. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of companies listen, this is capitalism. Capitalism is ruling. So it's always going to be about the dollar over the people. But I do think that there are very few companies that actively participate in providing like true mental health understanding and support to their employees.
I agree. And I read an article the other day that culture is actually, it starts from the CEO down.
Mm-hmm.
So if like managers and the higher up management, if they are walking the walk, then it trickles down to everybody and everybody feels supported and whatever. But um, so it does. I've been worked in places where it depends on who my manager is at that time,
Yeah.
what department I'm in, because some managers, they advocate for you more than others and all this stuff. And
Most people can be a manager, but very few people can be a leader. And a leader
right.
is the way I view leadership is, and this I learned at a young age when I was filmmaking at 18 years old, and I got 25 people to work on my movie for free. And it was
Hmm.
because it was a skill that I had learned there where you are not, I didn't know how to make a movie. I just knew how to write one. I had
Hmm.
never done anything technical with filmmaking, but I found the people that did and they believed in me, even though I was just 18-year-old kid. Right. And
Hmm.
so what I learned there is like leadership isn't defined by what you do. It's defined by what you help others or enable others to do. So, from the filmmaking perspective, I enabled a camera person to do what they want to do, which was be a camera person. I had a
Hmm.
cinematographer who wanted to do lighting. Actors and actresses that wanted to act, like I enabled them to act. And so if you think of that, that's a leader, right? You get them to believe in something and then you help them do it. You guide them to do it. And so I think if
Hmm.
more people thought like that, you would understand that as a leader in business, like your job is to enable them. If sometimes enabling them means telling them to take off a couple hours early if you can see they're having a rough day or something going on. Like, do it. What the hell is 4 hours to you if this person's gonna be able to take care of something that's gonna make them feel better as a human and then produce better? I just don't get it. Like, it's not that
Hmm.
hard, and I just think maybe it's something that people aren't taught. But it would be so easy, like you said, if the top down was invested in really being leaders instead of managers.
Hmm. I think that takes empathy and being somewhat emotionally intelligent. And I think a lot of people are in pain and don't know it. And
Mm-hmm.
they hurt people, and they suck as managers.
Uh,
They might, I mean, they might be producing.
yeah,
So the company doesn't, the company sees that, but, they're just not great leaders. Yeah.
I agree. I would love to hear in the comments if anyone has any thoughts on how their workplace supports their mental health. Do you feel they do? Do you feel they don't? I don't think it's acceptable to say, here's Headway or here's BetterHelp and you're good to go. I think it's
Hmm.
more than that. And
Hmm.
I think, we could probably take a whole nother half hour and talk about that. But yeah, I just think I'm not surprised by the results. I think that it, like you said, and agree with you, that it comes from leadership, the top down, requires emotional intelligence, empathy, and a look at the bigger picture. And I think there is a responsibility. I don't necessarily know that I could map out what I think it should be, but I think a company does have a responsibility to at least foster the culture of it's okay to not be okay. Your productivity does not come at the expense of your mental health. And we should encourage people to take time to take care of themselves.
I want to add something. I know it's kind of a longer episode. Maybe we'll split this episode. I don't know. But we're talking about the article I did, and we were like, are people maybe being too soft, and are we enabling people? I actually had a job where I felt like I was not being, supported mentally, because they were basically trying to push me out the doors of what it felt like. It was like, go, go, go. And it took me a while because I was hurt. I wasn't well mentally at the time. So, I wasn't viewing the world the way reality maybe actually was. Anyway, but now I look back at that situation, and I think that was probably the kindest thing they could have done, because some people just can't do some jobs. You know what I mean? It was such an anxiety-driven job. It was in theater, which there's a lot of burnout, a lot of turnover in staff, because it's go, 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 and it's
low pay,
stressful,
hard work,
low pay. Yeah. And I mean, that's why there's a lot of young people in it, because that's whatever, young people have the energy and whatever. Anyway, now looking back now, I'm like, that was actually them being very kind. They weren't assholes about it or anything. They were just kind of like, hey, I know you got a job offer somewhere else. Maybe you should try that place. And it was probably the most compassionate thing they could have done. It was me not seeing it like that at the time. So, so that's another thing that, individuals, you have to do the work, like we said, but also you have to take a good, long, hard look at yourself and be honest. Like, is this the right job for me? Maybe I just need out of here. Maybe it's not management. Maybe it's just, I'm just not built for this job.
I agree.
So, yeah.
I agree. Well, okay. We did it. What, a 30-minute episode? That's okay. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. This is our month. You know how I feel about
it's our month. All right. If you have any questions or concerns or articles you want us to look at, and like Nick said, we're curious to have your thoughts on what your workspace is like, and if you feel supported, reach out to us. And so anyway, I just want to say thanks, Nick. This was a good episode.
I think so too.
I liked it.
Awesome.
All right.
Bye, guys.
See you next time.
This has been our Mental Health Headline Hot Takes.
We're so glad you came.
Remember, when you heal yourself,
you heal the world.
Be sure to like this video, leave comments, and suggest articles for future episodes.
Hit subscribe to Eyes Wide Open
and Bunny Hugs and Mental Health.